You probably opened a PDF this week without thinking twice. A bank statement, a contract, an invoice, a CV. We treat PDFs like digital paper. It's safe. Granted, there are some file types that if it appeared in your inbox, you would instinctively side-eye. A random exe file? Suspicious. A weird zip file from a stranger? Nobody is going to touch that.
Not touching.
A Word document with macros? Delete it. But a PDF feels safe. A PDF is a thing that you would expect from a tax office, a court portal, a signed contract. It doesn't feel like software, it feels like digital paper. And that is kind of the whole point. The PDF became one of the most trusted file formats in the world because it promised something simple. A document should look the same everywhere. On Windows, on Mac, on Linux, in a phone, in a courtroom, in a bank, in a government department. The PDF was supposed to preserve the page exactly as the author intended. But a PDF is not digital paper. A PDF can contain text, buttons, forms, links, embedded images, files, metadata, and even, in some cases, code. So, the file format that we treat like a harmless piece of paper is actually more of a complicated container. So how and why did the world's most trusted file format become a security nightmare? One thing that comes up all the time when you are building AI projects is getting access to reliable real-time data. A lot of people start by trying to scrape Google or other websites themselves, and honestly, that's where things get painful. You end up dealing with captchas, proxy rotations, rate limits, and constantly having to fix your script when the site layout changes. And that's why I've been checking out SerpApi. SerpApi gives you structured search result data from Google, YouTube, Bing, Google News, Google Scholar, and a whole lot more. Instead of maintaining a bunch of scraping infrastructure, you make a request and get back clean JSON data that's ready to use. What I think is especially useful for AI builders is that you can use it to power agents, RAG systems, research tools, monitoring dashboards, or really any application that needs up-to-date information from the web. And if you're working on machine learning projects, the Google Scholar API can help you access academic research and metadata without having to build the pipeline yourself. So instead of spending weeks to build scrapers, you can spend that time actually building your product. You can get started with 250 free credits by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code on screen. Thanks to SerpApi for sponsoring this video. To understand how the PDF has become so trusted, we have to rewind to one of the most boring problems in personal computing, which usually means one of the most important ones. In the early 1990s, documents did not travel well. Layouts shifted, fonts broke, printers disagreed. Adobe co-founder John Warnock launched something called the Camelot Project in 1991. Capture a document from any application, send it anywhere, and view and print it on any machine. That idea became the PDF. That promise was deceptively brilliant. The core PDF standard still describes the mission in the same way. Electronic documents that can be exchanged and viewed independently of the environment that they were initially created. And that stability is the whole reason that people fell in love with PDFs itself. PDFs also had two huge strategic advantages. First, the specifications were openly available for developers to read and implement for years, which the PDF's actual association, called the PDF Association, says that was critical for the format's success. Secondly, the viewing software of the PDF became freely distributed and widely bundled across computers, phones, tablets, and browsers. It was that combination that turned the PDF from Adobe format into something much more powerful. It was more of an infrastructure. And once a PDF became infrastructure, it spread everywhere. The Library of Congress points to many millions of PDF files in its own collection, as well as the National Archives. Many courts, including US courts, require case files in PDFs, and lots of government departments just prefer PDF as a default format. And I think because of this, it changed the psychology of the file itself. We trust it. PDFs preserve the appearance. They also usually show up at the end of the workflow, not the beginning. You can draft in Word, you can edit in Google Docs. The final version is always a PDF. So in our heads, PDFs get filed somewhere between official, boring, and finished, which, to be fair, is incredible branding for a piece of software. But because of that, most people just think the PDF is standard. But is it really? Let's do a quick PDF X-ray. If you open the PDF in a text editor, you assume it's something simple, like a normal page with some text, maybe a placeholder or two for an image. But it doesn't look like a normal page at all. When you open a PDF file on a text editor, you will usually see a few obvious markers at the top and the bottom. But in between is something a bit more stranger, a pile of numbered chunks that tells the viewer how to build the document. Because a PDF isn't a flat digital file. It's more like a box of instructions. And inside that box are objects, little pieces that represent parts of a document. One object might describe a page, another one might contain text. Another might point to an image, a font, or a form field for you to sign. So when you open a PDF, the software is jumping around, finding the right pieces and stitching them together. Then there's something called streams. These are chunks where the PDF stores the heavy stuff. Images, drawings, instructions, font data, and more. They are often compressed, which means that your PDF viewer has to unpack it before they can even show you the page. This means that the page you see on screen is often built in real time from instructions, not simply revealed like a photo. PDFs can also contain forms. There's text boxes, there's buttons, there's calculations, there's even validation rules. So now the document isn't just something you read, it responds to clicks and inputs. PDFs can also contain links and actions. Some are obvious, but some aren't. A PDF can be set up so clicking on something opens a website, submits data, or triggers a behavior inside the PDF viewer. And then there's a part that most people don't always expect. A PDF can contain another file inside it. Yes, there can be an actual file embedded inside your PDF document. So the simple version is this. A PDF does look like paper, and that's how it was supposed to be. But underneath, it can contain layers of structure, compressed data, embedded fonts, interactive forms, and the more moving parts you pack into something that everyone trusts, the more chances there are for attackers to abuse it. A PDF arrives in your mailbox. It looks like it came from your HR department. So you think to yourself, it's a simple document, so you click it. But this document is not safe. This document wants to give you a reason to click it so it can be opened and do something that is not in your best interest. Microsoft themselves have written about issues with the PDF and scams associated with it. In March 2026, Microsoft published a case that shows concerns with people trusting PDFs. In one campaign, the victim had received an email that had what looked like a PDF attachment. When they opened it, the document contained a blurred image designed to look like a restricted file. Then it presented a big button telling the user to open it in Adobe. But instead of opening it in Adobe, the button sent the user to a fake Adobe download page, where the user was pushed to install what looked like an Adobe Reader update. Except it wasn't Adobe Reader. Microsoft says that the download was actually malicious software disguised as a trusted workplace app. And to make it more confusing, the files were digitally signed, which means it carried one of those "this looks official" sign, so the user trusts it. Once a malware it was installed to the user's computer, it deployed remote monitoring and management tools. In essence, it means that it now had access to the user's computer. Malwarebytes documented another version of the same trick. In this case, the email looked like a routine business request. Someone asking for a quotation on a purchase order. Exactly the kind of thing that someone in sales, operations, or accounts payable will open without even thinking twice. Because again, a purchase order is a PDF, and it's a boring task. But that file was actually not really a PDF. The attachment was named something like this, and that double extension matters. Because to a busy person, the .pdf part is the only part you need to trust. It says, I'm a PDF document, I'm good. But the real extension was a .htm, meaning it was actually an HTML file, basically a web page pretending to be a PDF. And when the victim opened it, they were shown a password prompt in front of a blurred document background, and the email address was already filled in, which made the whole thing feel a bit more legitimate. The page then collected the password entered by the victim, as well as the IP address, location, browser, and any other details. It then sent that information to a Telegram bot controlled by the attacker. And now the attacker has this person's email address and 2 passwords that the person uses. They can now try this combination on several different websites, from social media to even banking. And this is not an elite attack. It relied on the victim being busy, and it relied on the .pdf part of the file name being more emotionally convincing than the real file extension. And that is a larger point. Nowadays, attackers don't exploit software, they exploit habits. They exploit that tiny moment when your brain says, oh, this is just a PDF, and moves on. So by this point, the PDF has become dangerous in two different ways. Sometimes the file itself is technically complex to expose bugs in the reader, and sometimes the PDF is just a costume, a trusted shape that attackers use to get people to sign in, download, or approve. Either way, this format works because the world trusts PDFs. But if PDFs are messy, why do we still use them? Because they solve a real problem. PDFs open the same almost anywhere. They're good for printing, good for archiving, and they are deeply built into legal, business, and government workflows. In other words, the very thing that makes PDFs complicated is what makes it work. So I don't think the answer is to get rid of PDFs. It's just to stop thinking of them as digital paper. A PDF can look like a simple document, but we know underneath it, it's not. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.